All right, we should be live, but it's not showing that it is online. So if anybody can please let me know they are hearing my voice, I would appreciate it. Looks like it is online at this point. For some reason, YouTube is not showing when my live stream goes live or not, so I'm just going to assume that it's the case. Welcome, everybody. My name is Chris. This is my channel, We Love Comics. It is currently 6:28 p.m. Sorry about the delay. Had to make sure our cat Luna got her medication, and that took a little bit longer than normal. Good to see that people say they can hear me, so thank you for that. Just to show you, it's showing, or is it still showing offline? So, that's YouTube for you. What are you going to do? All right, so what I decided to do, because a couple of people actually asked me to do this, so welcome one and all. Wild Child, thank you for the belated birthday wishes. Chris is here, Geoff is here, Craig is here, Mark, John, Level Travel, Doggy Lover, Jeremy, Darwin, Jesse's here, Harvey, Chris, Red Matos is here. Let's see. Manny the Comic Collector, welcome. Good to see you. Another Chris, welcome. Jesse, I'm not sure if I said that name. Let's see. Rob Montana's here. A bunch of people here already, which is always a good sign. Mark, welcome. Ryuga 300, never seen you before, at least I don't believe, but welcome here nonetheless. Dave 0126. All right, so this is what we're going to do. A bunch of people have asked me. Stephen Oates, first one to leave a comment. Michael Wynn. People have asked me if I could do one of these Q&As, and I'm more than happy to do those. So basically what we're going to do is, if you want to ask a question, obviously comic related, if you put it in capital letters, in all caps, I will be able to see it better and faster. And of course, you don't have to do this, but if you want to, if you do a super chat, I will see it quicker and they will get priority. So if anybody does a super chat with their question, they will be read first. But again, it's not necessary if you want a question. If you want a question right away, that's different. But we got Unruly Simeon, thank you. Webhead is here. Nick the Comic Geek. Zoka, Wishing I Was Fishing. I love some of these names you guys come with. Horror Breakdown. All right, so basically, if you want to ask any comic-related questions, all you have to do is write it in this live chat, and please do it in capital letters so I can see it quicker. And like I said, if anybody does the super chats, I will give those priority, so ask away. All right, so we got our first question, and let's see. What is your most prized comic? I would have to say my most prized comic at this point would be my Hulk 181, because that was one of the comics of many of my comics that got stolen from me, and it took me almost over 10 years to get another one back, and it was one of my first big comics that got stolen from me that I got returned. Obviously, it wasn't the one that I had, but I think because of the fact it's like that situation of you don't know what you got until it's gone. And those of you may or may not know, my comics, my major comics, all my high-grade Grail comics got stolen back in 2001 when my house got robbed. So it took many years to get them back. And that was the first major one, because I was, even before these really high price increases, that book was getting out of range. And I didn't have a lot of money to be able to get bigger books at that point. So about 2 years ago, I was able to acquire Hulk 181 and Hulk 180, both graded 8.0s, and I spent, I think, a little bit over $2,000 for both, which you can't even get a 4.0 181 for that price anymore. So I would have to say, because it's that key of you don't know what you got until it's gone, I would have to say that's my most prized comic at this point. So thank you for that question. Wishing I was fishing. Hopefully you don't mind being here, but you can always go fishing afterwards. All right, so Jeremy says, thoughts on the hype of Cosmic Ghost Rider? Here's my opinion about things like that. I mean, even like Weapon H and some of these, like the Red Goblin, I don't know if I think these are going to be long-term characters that are going to stand the test of time. I mean, it really depends on how much people enjoy the characters, who writes them, is the artwork really nice. Some of these may just fade into, you know, oblivion at one point, but you never know. There's always exceptions to the rules. I mean, let's put it this way. If you got those first appearances for cover price, then you're going to win no matter what. I would be very careful spending $300, $400, $500 on some of these newer books. I mean, with any risk, you know, you are taking a chance. But, I mean, let's put it this way. If I had $500 cash to spend, and I had a choice of a 9.8 signature series of the first comic Ghost Rider and a lower grade Silver Age key issue, like the first appearance of the Green Goblin or something, I would pick the Green Goblin every time, especially over the Red Goblin. So, I mean, let's put it this way. If you enjoy the reading of it, then it's priceless. But I'm not sure if they're going to stand the test of time. It's way too early to tell. But again, if you're enjoying the stories and you bought them when they first came out, you're not really losing out. All right, so again, if you're just coming in, if you write in all capital letters, it'll be easier to see because I have a lot of people leaving their comments. And because it still shows offline, I have no idea how many people are on right now. So if somebody wants to indicate that, they can. But all capital letters for the question so I could see them. If you do a super chat, you will get priority. So again, that's not mandatory. But let's get to the next question. Let me scroll because the one thing about a lot of people, and I definitely appreciate it, is if you don't hold on to the thing, it scrolls by way too quick. All right, so next question is by Unruly Simeon. What do you reckon the staying power of Cosmic Ghost Rider will be? I think I probably answered that with the question I just said. So, again, it depends on how they write them. If it has staying power, if people stay with it, it could, you know, last for a while. It really depends on the people. I'm not so sure, but again, too early to tell. All right, so even though Harvey didn't write in capitals, but I'll give him the advantage of the fact that he can't hear me right now because he has to wait for the closed caption, so he didn't hear that, so that's fine. But Harvey says, any thoughts on movie news mentioned above? Gideon Falls. Until something has been officially started production and you see the first trailer, it's really hard to say, especially with these movies that most people are not going to be familiar with, because we've learned these days how many people make books and they get optioned for a TV show and a movie and they never happen. So I would be careful with these minor comics that are getting TV shows or movies because, one, they may never be made, two, they might not last that long, and three, they might even not be good at all. So you're taking your chance on those. So, I mean, I think for every one or two that succeed, there's going to be 15 to 20 that never even see the light of day, even though they were optioned. I think, like, movie companies, because they're so, you know, void of original ideas, they're going to take the chance of owning the rights of everything that they can, and then worry about if they're going to use it or not later on down the line. So it's really hard to say what is going to happen with them, especially things like Gideon Fall. But again, if you bought these books for cover price or paid way below what the current prices are, you're going to be fine. And if you bought it because you enjoy it, then it really doesn't matter. So Doggy Lover says, what's your 3 favorite comic series? I'm partial to the older stuff. Two of my all-time favorites is absolutely the Infinity War. I have the original set that I bought the day they came out. Love that read. I mean, a little disappointed. As good as the Infinity War it doesn't follow too much of the way the comic book went. I mean, I love the fact of Mephisto in the background and what his role was. The storyline was amazing. Another storyline I would highly recommend is, and I've said this before, it's in issues that went through Amazing Spider-Man, Web of Spider-Man, and Spectacular Spider-Man. This is in the 90s. It was either late 80s or early 90s, where Spider-Man gets cosmic powers. And it was just something about that storyline. It went like back and forth to a couple of different issues of all 3 of the series. I would say that was another great read. If you haven't read them, I highly recommend them. Very cheap to get those books. And the last, when I first came back around 2014, and I learned about the Civil War, I bought the 6-issue, it's either 6 or 7 issue series, and that was, again, another great storyline. So, as you can see, I'm more Marvel than DC. Doesn't mean I hate DC. I just was always gravitating towards Marvel a little bit more. So those would be the three that I would say they're the best. Of the three, I think the way I put them in order is probably the way I would suggest from best to least. I would say definitely Infinity War. Actually, I would probably put Civil War before the Spider-Man Goes Cosmic. But still a great read. Definitely check that out if you can. Let's see. Next one. Ryuga 300, and forgive me if I pronounce the names wrong, says, how much is the first appearance of Vision? Well, that's hard to say because it really depends on the grade, what company graded it, if it is graded or not. So, really hard to say. What I would suggest is, first of all, you can look on eBay. Don't base it on what people are selling it for. Base it on what people have paid for it. So, if you look up, for example, the first appearance of Vision, which is fantastic. No, Avengers number 57, I believe, if I remember offhand. On the left-hand corner on the eBay, you'll see all different categories of things you can click. One of them is sold items. So you can check there to see what people have paid for it. And then you can also go to websites like the one that I go to is gocollect.com, and they give you an idea of what the prices are. But keep in mind, prices are not based on what somebody suggests they are. It's what people are willing to pay. So, for example, if Amazing Spider-Man #1 at a 1.0 is worth $5,000, that doesn't necessarily mean that people aren't going to spend higher to get it. It really depends on supply and demand. So, the older the book, the more chances, especially in higher grade, it's going to be harder to get. That's why you see such dramatic price differences between like a 5.0 and a 9.0 when it comes to older books. So it really depends on the grade. What I would recommend is always research and see what's out there and know that that can always change. So let's see. All right, Chris Barrett says, how do you feel about the upcoming Marvel's 80th variant covers after the passing of Stan Lee? Absolutely hate it. I think that 80 variants is absolutely ridiculous. Let's put it this way. Just because I'm sharing my opinion doesn't mean you have to agree with it or follow it. If you decide that you want to buy all 80 variants, you know, God bless you, especially if you have that kind of money to throw away on basically the same book. But Marvel, especially, is going way out of control with these variants. And more bad is going to come out of this than good. Especially if they're going to take advantage of Stan Lee passing. And one of the things I want to clarify from yesterday, because people may have misunderstood, when I said Stan Lee hasn't been relevant, I'm not talking about that he hasn't done anything. What I'm saying is, if you compare the first half of his career from the 40s to the 70s, and then the 70s till today, it's a no-brainer which one he had more involvement with the comics. So he became, after he left Marvel, he became basically a spokesperson. Yes, he did write a couple of books and be parts of stories every now and then, but there's no comparison to before he left Marvel of his significance. So when I said that, I wanted to make sure I clarified that I'm not saying, you know, Stan Lee was never relevant. I mean, that would be a ridiculous thing for anybody to say. But I want to make sure I mention that. Let's see. And again, please write in capitals so I could see it better. It's just easier. Because when this scroll, every time I scroll down, it's going to readjust to all the new people that wrote stuff down. So I may pass it. So if you write it in, again, if you write it in capital letters, I'm going to see it better. So I don't want anybody to think I'm purposely trying to skip them. I got a lot of people that are leaving comments. So let's find where I left off, because like I said, once you scroll and hold it, it'll just shoot all over the place. Okay, so Mark Demio says, what's your favorite character to collect? Spider-Man would be one. Wolverine is another. Batman I love to collect. I think the Punisher also is another one I love to collect. But I think as far as, like, older stuff, I mean, you can't go wrong with, especially older Batman, like I said, older Spider-Mans. The Wolverine is, you know, especially his older stuff. Earlier X-Men. I was always fascinated with the X-Men. I remember one of my favorite comics when I first started collecting and I was in college. I think it was X-Men 282. I could be wrong. It's probably not right. I think it might be 272, where they show Wolverine hung on an X, and you just see him in the, like, it's shaded black, like he's in the background. But that was when there was a little run of the X-Men where they were talking about the Sentinels. That's when I was really first introduced to the X-Men. Fell in love with them ever since that. So that whole run, especially the area of First Gambit, First Bishop, and everything, those I all bought cover price the day they came out. So I think X-Men is definitely a favorite of mine as well. But as far as older stuff, I mean, any of the Silver Age stuff you really can't go wrong with. All right, so let's see. Night Tiger says, if Stan was still writing the Cosmic Ghost Rider, would the Ghost Rider Cosmic? I'm not sure what you meant by that question. Please rewrite it, because if Stan was still writing the comic Ghost Rider, would the Ghost Rider Cosmic? I'm not sure what you meant. Please rewrite that. Okay, so let's see. Donald says, did you know Stan Lee gave St. Jude Hospital over $6 million in his lifetime? He signed Spider-Man issue 200 for me. Asked me to give St. Jude's Hospital $50 for that. I did not know that, and that's really nice of him to do. Definitely a great man. I would never take that away from him. Let's see. Wishing I was fishing, so sorry to hear about your books. Glad I got them back. Yeah, I got lots of them back, but in a lot lower grade and definitely a lot more expensive than when I originally paid for them. I'll give you an example. My Hulk 181 would have easily been a 9.2 to a 9.4, and I spent under $100 for it back in the days. So, I mean, I had a Amazing Spider-Man #9, which is the first appearance of Electro. It was the most expensive comic I bought. Back in the early 90s, I spent $125, and I was nervous because that was a very expensive book back then, $125. But that book would have easily been a 9.6 or a 9.8. I mean, you're talking, that's in the tens of thousands now. So, yeah, so they got me pretty good with those. So, I do have lower grades, but they are definitely more expensive than what I used to have, and definitely not as high a grade. But to me, something's always better than nothing. Tracy's Best says, are you feeling a lot of pressure to answer all of these questions? No, there's no pressure. Because honestly, if there's a question I can't answer, you know, I'll just tell people straight out. I might not be the best one for that question. But definitely no pressure. I mean, bring it on. I know most of you are going to ask very honest and fair questions, and that's what I appreciate from you guys. So no, not at all. Let's see. Rand for Tim Muggan. How are you, Chris and guys? Don't forget the girls. I'm sure there's some girls here, too. I'm doing well. Zocal says, thoughts on Tales of Suspense 48. All right, let me first, we're going to look that up just to make sure we know everything about that book. And what I do is I'll go on eBay, I'll write Tales of Suspense 48, and then I will look under, for example, a CGC or CBCS or CGC or PGX version, because it'll give you all the information in it. This book I ended up getting last year during the Super Bowl, and I paid like $50 for it. It's the first appearance of Mr. Dahl, which is no big deal, but it's the first time he got his new armor, because before issue number 48, he had just he started out with silver in the first issue, then it was all gold. But that issue, Tales of Suspense 48, is the first time he had the red and gold armor. So, I think it's an undervalued book, but definitely one if you can get for a good price to pick up on. Like I said, I paid like about $52 for it the day of the Super Bowl. So, it's probably about a 5.0 to a 6.0 range. Not a bad book to get, but it always boils down to price. Never overspend on a book unless you really want it. For example, if you have to have it, sometimes, you know, for anything, if you want something bad enough, you're going to overspend. I mean, look at the first generations of video games. You know, when the first one comes out, people are spending $1,000 on something that 6 months later is on sale for like $2.99. So, I mean, it depends. Can you be patient? You know, can you contain your emotions and wait for a deal? Or do you have to have it at that moment? If you have to have it at that moment, you're going to spend a lot of money. And if your purpose is to buy it to sell it, well, you don't want to spend a lot of money. So I always tell people, be patient and wait, or even ask for deals. So this could be a response to any book. The value is only if you paid less for it and you sell it for more than what you paid for it. I mean, if you're buying it just because you want to have it in your collection, then it doesn't really matter about price, but why spend more if you don't have to? So I don't think at this point that book is going to be too much higher. But, I mean, it's still a key book, and if you can get it cheap, it's definitely worth getting. But make sure you know the value of the book depending on the grade that you're looking at, and just go from there. All right, so people are telling me about 65 to 68 people are watching. Still shows me offline, so I don't know what's going on with this, but I appreciate that. Doggy Lover says there's 7 people. Well, considering how many comments, I doubt that's the case, but that's actually funny if it went from 68 to 7. Let's see. Harvey says Marvel will need to honor Stan Lee in a very special way. DC too. I'm sure they will. There's no doubt in my mind they won't. But, I mean, don't go overboard with the sales. I mean, if you want to make a tribute, that's fine. But if you take... See, this is the thing. I live by a motto of just because you can doesn't mean you should. Now, can Marvel do like 100 comics that all tribute to Stan Lee? Yeah. But... if they're doing it like that, then it's basically they're taking advantage of a very tragic situation and trying to profit off of it. And that's what I was trying to say about the video yesterday, is that, you know, some people, there's nothing wrong with selling your books. I mean, they're your books, you spent your money, you could do whatever you want. It's almost like, to me, it's a comparison of, God forbid, your parents or somebody that you love passes away, and the moment you find out they're dead, you're like, oh, I wonder what I can get from them, you know, from their will. I mean, worry about that later. It should not be priority. But I don't want people to think if you bought a book or sold a book that you're like Satan or something. No. You know, it's just my opinion. It doesn't mean you have to agree. So, as usual, I got a bunch of hate on that one. But hey, you know, if you're going to be mad at people because of their right to have an opinion, then be careful about that. Because one day they just might take your opinions and your right to have them away, and you're really going to be disappointed you were one of the people that tried to stifle people's right to have an opinion. Doesn't mean their opinion is right or wrong, but it is to them. It's right to them. So let's see. Night Tiger says, why do you emphasize after keys? Just to make money or because you like the key issues? Well, Night Tiger, if you've seen my channel, I don't sell any of my comics, but eventually I will. To me, I always liked the fact of collecting things that had value. I've done it with baseball cards. I've done it with other collectibles. I have antiques and things like that. I guess maybe I'm a hoarder. Who knows? But I've always liked to collect things that have value, because if my thing is, if there's ever an emergency, I mean, as nice as it is to have a whole bunch of reader copies of books. Now, if you have tens of thousands of books, you're not reading them all. Anybody that says they read all their books when they have tens of thousands are liars, because there would be no physical way in your life unless you literally spent 24 hours a day, 7 days a week doing nothing but reading comics. You're never going to read them all. So to me, if there's ever an emergency, you know, knock on wood, where I needed fast cash, I can sell something of mine that has value. If you have 5,000 books that aren't worth anything other than your enjoyment for reading them, if you all of a sudden have to come up with some money to pay a bill or have, you know, something, God forbid, happen, it's going to be very difficult. So for me, I just loved key issues. I loved having the books that had importance. Now, that doesn't mean that my way is right or wrong. It's just right for me. It's what I enjoy. Just like if you are collecting and you only bought them because you like to read them, that doesn't make you bad. It doesn't make you wrong. And that's one of the problems I have with some people in the comic book community, where they feel it's their need to dictate what you do is right or wrong. Like, we need some stranger's approval of what we choose to do. So I just always liked having things that are of importance. I would rather have the first appearance of Batman than the 132nd appearance of Batman. It's just nice to say, if I ever got it, say, wow, I have the first appearance of Batman. I'm not going to be like, wow, I have the first appearance of Batman, let me sell it tomorrow. Because if you watch all my videos, I have 99.9% of my books, not including the ones that got stolen from me, and about 15 books that I've sold in the past. Well, since 2015, I've sold one book, and that was that case that I cracked open. And one of the subscribers of mine ended up buying it from me. I was like, you know, what the heck? But I just like the fact that they're key issues and they're important. You know, let's put it this way. If somebody did an unboxing of Amazing Spider-Man number 333, which is no major thing at all, would anybody care? Would anybody watch it? Would anybody want to say, oh, I need to buy that book? What do people like to watch? The unboxings of key issues, because they get to learn what's valuable. So the problem is most people are not very honest in why they collect comics. You know, I see so many people that say, oh, you should only buy them for the fact of reading them, and yet they have multiple copies, they have graded copies, and they sell their comic books. They won't buy any coverless issues. So if you really love to read comics, last time I checked, you don't read any of the story on the cover for the most part. So cover really doesn't matter. If you buy them because you read them, why would you need them graded? Because if you grade them, that defeats the purpose of being able to read them. And also, remember, you can get digital copies, too. So if you only did it for the reading, why do you even need a physical copy, then? When you could just go online or go on YouTube, for example, and read almost any book you want for, what, $1? How much does it cost to read Amazing Fantasy 15 on the internet? $5? Less? So there are people who like to basically tell others how to be or say they're right or wrong. There is no wrong way. I mean, if somebody bought a book, and I hope no one ever does this, if somebody buys a whole bunch of books and decides to make a video of him tearing them into pieces, I mean, that's a really crappy thing to do, but they have the right to do it because it's theirs. So, I mean, sometimes people's opinions of other people seem to think that it's supposed to change what that person does. Never let anybody influence you in a negative way. And if somebody else says what you do is wrong, I mean, unless you are doing something wrong, like robbing from somebody or trying to murder somebody, kidnap somebody, you know, if you're doing something wrong, then yes, call somebody out. But if somebody collects something differently than you, you know, if that's the worst thing they ever do in their life, it's not a bad person. So let's focus some of the hatred or negativity. I'm not saying you, but I'm saying in general, people in general. How about we focus our negativity and anger so many seem to have on people that do wrong, the people who steal, the people who lie to people, and I'm talking groups of mass amount of people that cause damage, the people that are supposedly here to, you know, take care of us and do a lot of things for their own self-interest. Let's not hate somebody because they collect Xbox games instead of PlayStation games, or have a difference of religion, or collect bottle caps for the profitability of them. I mean, let people have their fun. I don't know why some people feel the need to have to ruin somebody else's enjoyment. So that's that answer. So let's see. All right, let's scroll down. Again, if you write in capitals, I'm going to be able to see it better. All right, so Webhead says, do you think saturating the community with variants will hurt collecting? Oh, it absolutely will. You know, just think of that, saturating the community. Well, if you had a farm and you open the floodgates to let water in, you're watering the crops. But what happens if you leave that open or open it wider than you need? What happens? You destroy everything. So unfortunately, I've seen this, and it happened in the 90s. People think it's a good idea. The companies make some profit and feel like, oh, well, we made money here, we got to keep doing it. And what do? They bleed it dry. And it's like anything. You bleed it dry, it will die. So, unfortunately, because people want to buy all of these variants, and again, you have the right to do it, it's going to hurt the community because people will leave left and right, especially when you see the prices of some of these variants. And I see some of them, like, for example, that the Ghost Spider #1. There was like a 1 in 100 or 1 in 200 variant. I've seen it between $500 and $1,000. If you're spending $1,000 on a brand new book that just came out, and I'm talking the day it came out, people were trying to sell it for $1,000, it's going to do more harm than good. But, you know, I mean, again, if you buy them because you like it, that's great. All right, so John Alfonso says, what is your favorite cover artist? I would say of all time, I have two. It would definitely be Jim Lee and Michael Turner. I think both of them, they're fairly similar in their art style, but I like the realism. I also like Art Germ's work these days, and I forget his name. It's Lucio. I forget his last name, so I'm sure somebody will fill in the blank. But some of these newer guys, Bob Ross. I'm sorry, not Bob Ross. I do that all the time. Alex Ross. He has great stuff. To me, the one that I find the least favorite is one that many people like, and that's Scott Campbell. I don't think his work is bad. I just think like he draws almost every woman almost exactly the same, and they all look like elves. I mean, lots of people like him, so I'm not saying if you like him, you're bad. That's just not my cup of tea. But yeah, I think of all time, I would say, with the amount of work he's done, #1 would be Jim Lee. His artwork is just amazing, even to this day. All right, so let's see. Rand Tour Tim Mungen says, your opinion on anything coming out of Infinity Wars? I mean, as far as the movie's concerned, I've been staying away from all the spoiler alerts and people's opinions and stuff like that. I hate the fact that the internet can ruin a movie beforehand. I mean, to me, it's bad enough that you already know these characters are coming back, because they've already made confirmed a Spider-Man 2, a Doctor Strange 2, a Black Panther 2, so you know the stakes aren't going to be as high. So I'm getting to the point now where I might watch the first trailer, and then after that, I don't want to know anything. So as far as what's going to be coming out of the Infinity War, well, the biggest thing is most of the people that you thought were dead will probably come back. Other than that, I don't know of any kind of secrets or information, because I just don't want to know. I want to go to a movie being pleasantly surprised, not saying, oh, here comes the part where this person does this. I mean, then what's the sense of me going to the movies to watch it? So I don't have that much information, and I'm sure most people appreciate that. All right, so of course I scrolled, and wow, there's a lot of comments. So I got to find where my spot was. All right, forgive me on that. And this is going to be a long video, so if you like that, you know, this is great stuff. All right, let's see. All right, we answered that one. Okay, so I'm right back where we are. Okay, so Manny the Comic Collector says, your opinion with shops overcharging for B covers. I don't like when anybody overcharges right away. I mean, nowadays it's getting to the point, the day that a book comes out, people are trying to sell it for $30 to $50 to $100. But here's the thing. Nobody forces somebody to buy it right away. I tell people all the time, do not allow emotion to take control of your ability to think common sense. Because you notice a lot of these covers, they'll go up really quick, and then they'll drop really quick. So you either have to buy it right away or wait for the dip. And the funny part is, by the time the book starts dropping, most people don't even want it. And I'll use this example time and time again. How many of you right now are dying to get your hands on the first appearance of Ultron and the first appearance of Apocalypse? Now, you can get these darn cheap. I saw the first appearance of not Apocalypse, but Ultron. The first appearance of Ultron, which was a CGC 9.0. It was selling for $200. Buy it now. And it had a 7-day listing. Nobody bought it. If you would have seen that book 3 years ago, that would have probably been about a $1,200 to $1,400 book. But nobody wants it. So you either got to jump on board really quick, wait for a deal, or wait for it to drop. But like I said, because so many people buy things based on emotion, when it's declining, nobody wants it. So you really got to pounce on it quick. But I don't like the fact that people overcharge, but I can't blame the seller. The seller can list something for whatever they want. I mean, this cell phone, they could turn around and charge $1 million for it. It's only worth $1 million if somebody pays for it. So, yes, is it bad that they're overcharging for these books? Yeah, but people are buying them. So, think of it as a business. If you're a business owner, if you could sell a $100 item for $200, and you know people are buying it, why would you ever sell it at $100? So, they're only giving you what the people are paying for. Now, they can complain. They may not like it, but they're still buying it. And last time I checked, businesses do not base their decisions on your feelings and your emotions. They base it on the sales numbers. So if people do nothing but complain and they still buy them, they're going to give you what they know you will buy. And if that means they raise the prices of comics to $4.99 and $5.99 and $6.99 and people complain but they still buy them, they're giving you what people want. So you're in control of prices. If you don't like something, sometimes you just got to sacrifice. I mean, I'll give you a prime example. The day that the Batwang book came out, the Batman Damned, I had the cover in my hand. I didn't know about the thing in the back, but I saw the price tag. I think it was $6.99, and I said, no, thank you, and I put it down on the shelf. I was the first person in that comic store, so I could have bought 10 of them if I wanted to. But I did not like the fact that they were charging $6.99 for that comic. Now, do I regret the fact of now knowing that book's around the $50 book? No. It's the principle of the thing. You have to sometimes think about the principle, integrity, and trying to think long term. Not just that emotional moment that will fill that satisfying need that you have as a desire to pick something up. So always remember, buyers are in control. If you don't like a price that somebody's selling something for, and if nobody buys it, either that business goes out of business or they're forced to lower it. People do not understand the powers that they truly have. Even when it comes to, like, for example, governments. They make profit off of you, but we can control them. Unfortunately, most people don't think that way. All right, Doggy Lover says, what do you think the grade would come back? Oh, he's talking to Harvey. Okay. All right. Chris says, sorry, I meant the upcoming Marvel 80th anniversary variants. You know, like I said, again, they're going to overdo it. It's just too much in my opinion. But that's just my opinion. If you're looking forward to all 80 variants and you have the money to buy them, you know, the one thing I like about some of this newer stuff, while most people are concentrating on the newer stuff, they're not paying attention to the Golden Age books, the Silver Age books, and I'm able to get them at much better prices because there's less competition. So in my sense, hey, if they want to waste their money on 80 different variants, no, that's better for people like me who want the older stuff that no one's bidding on. Let's see. Dave0126 says, do you read, collect Golden Age Batman? I do collect them, but I don't read them, and the reason being is a lot of the books that I could afford are very lower grade and they're very fragile, and I don't want to take the chance of opening it up and pages get ripped or something like that. But I do have a bunch of Golden Age books. As a matter of fact, I have a video that shows some of them. I just had a video I did 2 days ago of a new Golden Age book that I just got. Not many people have seen it, only about 400 views on that book, which with 5,000 subscribers is a little disappointing. But I tend to not read them because I don't want to damage them. To me, I feel like Golden Age books are like literally a piece of history. I mean, you're talking some of these books are over 80 years old at this point, and I just want to treat them like I would with any kind of antique with care. So, I mean, you can literally read any book you want online, but I love collecting Golden Age because it's just holding a Golden Age book in your hand, it's just really different than a modern book today. So, Bad Dad 320, hopefully you're not a bad dad, but he says, the Fantastic Four, how do you see them entering the Marvel movie universe? That's a good question. That's why I think, in my opinion, you may see Galactus in the next Infinity War. I could be wrong about that, but they're saying how, the only thing I do know is they say there's a bigger threat than Thanos. I mean, how many well-known characters that the rest of the public would understand who they are? I mean, because people are saying things like, for example, the character Annihilation. The reason I don't think he's going to be the main character, and I could be wrong, is the fact that most people don't know who he is. But a lot of people know who Galactus is. So as long as they don't make him into a big gray cloud, I would love to see them enter that way. But I really think it has to do with the parallel universes and, you know, time travel and all that stuff. I think that's how they're going to introduce it. But I hope I'm wrong and they surprise me. Whatever way they do it, I am so looking forward to it. The only thing I hope they don't do is say, oh, well, they've been here all along, we just haven't seen them yet. Because that doesn't make sense. Because especially the Baxter Building is located in New York, which means you're telling me that when the Battle of New York was happening in the first Avengers movie, that they did nothing. So I don't think they're going to go that route, and I really hope they don't. But I think it's going to have to do with, you know, the multiple universes and time travel. So I'm sure it's going to be in that way, shape, or form. Whatever it is, I am so looking forward to it. Of the characters that I'm looking forward to the most, Silver Surfer and Galactus are #1. Wolverine is #2, followed by, you know, the X-Men and the whole Fantastic Four, and all the villains that are going to come with it. I mean, the fact that we can have Galactus in a movie, the fact that we can have Doctor Doom is amazing, and I am so looking forward to that. So hopefully they'll introduce it in a way that none of us have even thought of, and it makes sense and is enjoyable. I will give Marvel the benefit of the doubt because so far they've made nothing but pretty darn good movies. And even the ones that aren't their greatest, you know, they're still not horrible. I think the only bad movie, in my opinion, that they've done was Iron Man 3. I just found that one incredibly boring. But, you know, it still made a lot of money. But always remember, money doesn't always guarantee success. I mean, look at Suicide Squad. I mean, I was so looking forward to that because of the awesome trailers. And when my wife and I came out of that movie theater, the night that movie came out, we're both like, what did we just watch? It was a mess. But yeah, it made a lot of money. All right, so let's see. Harvey says, are you aware of a panel comic called Our Valued Customers? It's a riot that I'm not familiar with. If you want to post a link on any information in that, and when this goes and processes, please do. The DWLD says, happy, happy, joy, joy, I am here. Well, there you go. That's a good spirit. Let's see. Again, if you're just coming in, try and write your questions in capital letters because there's a bunch of people talking back and forth, and with the capital letters, I could see it better. And again, if anybody does any super chats, I'll read them right away. Rand for Tim Mungan says, best price guide you use. I pretty much use GoCollect.com. The reason being is they base the prices on comics that are sold because, like I said, value should be based on what people are willing to pay. A price guide is just that. It's a guide. It's not a etched in stone. Like if you see Amazing Spider-Man #1 and let's say the price guide says it's $5,000 for a particular grade, somebody wants it bad enough, they'll spend double the money for it. I mean, like I say, most people buy things based on emotion, and they don't have the patience to wait. So there will be people that will be willing to overspend on what a book is. So does that mean that book is no longer worth the price that the price guide said? I think it really is determined on the buyer. So that's why when I check the value of a comic, I base it on the GoCollect.com and also previous sales on eBay. I check that myself, and I go on based on what people have been willing to pay for the book. That's going to set the market. Buyers set the market, even though the people that profit off of you that sell stuff will try and convince you otherwise. Just unfortunately, most people believe that. All right, so let's see. Ken Cotty 64. Luckily, I saw this. It wasn't in capital letters, but I happened to just caught my eye. Says, hey, what's up? What do you think of Marvel Avengers 700 being $6? I would say not surprising. I won't buy it. I mean, if other people want to buy it, that's great. Like I said, they're conditioning people to get used to these higher prices. I'm sure, yes, it will be a bigger book. It will be thicker. It will have more stuff. It's just, for me, I'm not willing to spend on a brand new book $6. A lot of times with these key issues, they don't usually do major events. I mean, it has happened. I mean, look at Amazing Spider-Man 300, for an example. But, you know, if you think $6 is worth it, then by all means get it. I'll be passing up on it. Let's see. Chaos Lord says, I think having a sale to honor Stan Lee is a fitting tribute. Hey, whatever you think is what you want to do. To me, a tribute should be honoring the person, not honoring them by making money off them. I mean, to me, I just think it's in bad taste. It does, again, it's not illegal, it's not immoral, it's not wrong. You're not Satan if you do it. I just feel like, you know, if a family member of mine passed away, I mean, I'll give you an example. My father died in a fire in 2012. We didn't even start talking about the will and having anything come to us until about 2.5 years later. Because our family was more concerned about a loss of our father. We didn't really care about what our father was willing to give us. I mean, the only reason that we had to even get some of his property is because he was living in the basement of a friend that the house caught on fire, and we wanted to save it from being destroyed because the house was going to end up being condemned, and we didn't want all of his stuff to be ruined. And I'll tell you, one of his most prized possessions was this big keyboard, because my father was... He used to live in Virginia when he got divorced with my mother, stayed there for a couple years, had a new wife, they got divorced. He moved back to New York to try and rekindle things with me. He kind of like disappeared for a while. We weren't very close. So he moved in with his best friend and his best friend's wife, they've been friends since they were kids. And unfortunately, my father's friend fell asleep with a cigarette in his hand. The place went on fire and all of them died. But his biggest possession was this keyboard. And it was a very valuable keyboard. It was an electric keyboard, but it was one they used when they were in their band. And when we were doing the funeral, because he wanted to be cremated, the only surviving band member, his name was Richie. And because I was the oldest son, I basically had control of all of his possessions. Now, I could have easily taken that keyboard that was worth a couple of $1,000s, either kept it or sold it. But because it meant so much to the band member that was alive, I said, this means more to you than it will ever mean to me. And I said, please take this. The idea is you really should not base things on what can I get from somebody. It should be based on the tribute of the person himself. So honestly, Chaos Lord, if you want to honor Stan Lee, why does anybody have to sell anything? That's not honoring them. That's taking advantage of a situation in order to make extra money. Is it low-down, scummy things? No. There's worse things in life. People who kidnap, people who rape, people who steal, people who murder. It's nowhere on that same level. But is it going to get you Father of the Year awards for doing it? No. So again, it's just, to me, I think there's just better things to do if you want to honor somebody and not to just throw a bunch of books that he signed online so you can make some extra money. Can you do it? Absolutely. Is it in good taste? Some may not agree with you. So, again, you have the right. All right, so, all right. There you go. John says a very good thing. If they want to honor Stan Lee, some of the profits could go to a charity under his name. There you go. But again, it shouldn't be based on having to sell stuff, because even if they give some of it to charity, a lot of it's going to them. So they're using the tragedy of somebody else to make money. I don't know if that's necessarily the best way to honor somebody's life, but many people do it. And again, just because everybody does something does not make it right or make it the best decision. So always keep that in mind. Don't be a follower. Be a leader. All right, so the Great Legend says, Chris, would you say now is a great time to buy Luke Cage and Iron Fist 1's first appearances? Well, if you're basing it on supply and demand and prices, it absolutely would be. Luke Cage and Iron Fist were both canceled, and because of that fact, many people are staying away from those books. Supply and demand, so there's going to be a lot of supply now. There's going to be a lower demand, which means prices are going to lower. So as far as getting those books, now would be the perfect time to get them. Sadly, most people won't, because of the fact that they bought them simply for the fact that everybody else wanted them. So they would rather, like if a book was at $20 for 10 years, no one would touch it. And then all of a sudden there's a movie or TV show and that $20 book becomes a $150 book. Now all of a sudden everybody wants it. And that $150 book grows to a $300 book. Now more people want it. And the same effect, if it drops down to $100 from that other $300 price range, now everybody's staying away from it. So is it the best time to get these books? Yes. Will most people get them? No. So if you want to get those books and you couldn't afford them before, now you're going to get them at cheap prices. But like I said before about like the first Ultron and the first Apocalypse, the ironic part is by the time you wait for those prices to dip, it's because no one wants them anymore, and because most people do things based on emotion and what other people are doing, they probably won't get them. So, Great Legend, if you like Luke Cage and Iron Fist, this would be a perfect time to get them. Because you never know, they might end up in a Defender movie. They might end up in a Luke Cage Iron Fist TV show. They may come back again on another network. You never know. Or they may never not do anything at all. So it definitely shows people you're supposed to buy low and sell high. Most people buy high and sell as it's going down. It's the exact opposite of what you want if you're trying to make money. If you're just buying it to read it, then any time is a good time. All right, so let's say Vu Hung says, is this live? I sure hope so, because otherwise I am dead right now, and I would love to see how you guys were able to see me. So I am hoping it's live, but yes, this is live. And of course now, I have to scroll back up. So again, if you're just coming in, if you do it in all capital letters, I will see it quicker. If you do a super chat, I'll read it right away. Again, it's not mandatory. It's still showing it offline, so I have no idea how many people are watching, but based on the amount of comments, I would have to say there's a lot, so thank you. All right, so let's see. Let's see some questions. Chris, all right, James Ewing says, Chris, how do you keep track of all your books? I don't. I keep track of my more expensive, more valuable, and more key issues, but I literally have at least 30 to 40,000 books. I mean, yes, some of my major comics got stolen back in 2001, but the majority of them didn't. It was just my more valuable ones. So, I mean, I have literally 32 to 35,000 books. There'd be no way at this point that I could sort them, because a lot of those books I got when I was a kid. So at this point, it would literally take me months and years to sort everything. So now I do a sorting of like the value of the book or the ones that I really like and go from there. But honestly, if I want to find something, just kind of search for it. It's just me. It's more fun that way anyway. It's almost like rediscovering them again. So let's see. Doggy Lover says, I don't mind long live streams as long as I watch them live. Well, I'm glad you're here. They say 74 people watching and 7 likes. Well, people, you know, whether you like it or not, that's up to you. I always appreciate those that do. Let's see. And John says, I do have Apocalypse, need Ultron. Well, it's pretty cheap, so you could definitely get it. The key is not following the herd. Absolutely. The herd doesn't know where they're being led to. Be a leader, not a follower. Like I say all the time, for thousands of years, the masses were convinced and believed that the earth was flat. Just because the masses believe something does not make them right. Keep that in mind. Never be afraid to question anything. And do your own research, because you never know. If somebody made a mistake, why would you want to make the same mistake by just listening to somebody else? You know, you're responsible for what you do and don't do. If you spend your whole life blaming everybody else, then you're not taking responsibility for your own choices. And that's why I tell people when I recommend a book, I always say there are risks involved. Just because I got a good deal or think it's a good deal doesn't mean you should just throw millions of dollars at something saying, well, I'm getting it because somebody else said it or a bunch of people said it. Take responsibility for your actions. If you don't do research, if you don't ask questions, if you don't know what you're getting yourself into, you're going to be burned more times than you're going to be happy. And you can't blame other people for your choices to either listen or not listen. I mean, how many people have seen my videos that I made on my original channel where I was telling people to buy the Ultimate Fallout 4 when it was $10? Most people missed out on it. Most people laughed at me and said I was crazy. That book will never amount to anything. Good luck trying to find a raw copy of that book for under $50 at this point. So, I mean, it's my thing is don't be a follower. Be a leader. And even if you choose to be a follower, at least question people. Or at the very least, verify what they're saying is accurate. Otherwise, you're going to be taken advantage of more times than you will be given the truth. So, unfortunately, a lot of people have alternative motives and like to profit off of people's naivety and trust. So be very careful about that. Let's see. All right, Sequential Geek says, that's why I say ban for former Marvel. I'm not sure. I guess that's in the middle of the discussion. He says, what's up, WLC Chris? Welcome, Sequential Geek. Always nice to see you. Geoff says, YouTube keeps deleting my question. I'm sorry to hear that, but ask your question again, and I'll be more than happy. Leo says, I remember when I had 23 copies of Batman Damned. Well, I mean, hey, if you made a lot of money on it, more power to you and everything. You know, there are so many people that will criticize people for what they do. My thing is, why do people really worry or care about what other people are doing as long as they're not doing anything to hurt anybody? Because let's put it this way, the person that said they sold 23 copies, what if 23 people out there didn't have that book and wanted to get it, and purchasing them made them happy? Well, then, yeah, you might have made a little money off of it, but you also helped make people happy. Is that a bad thing? No, there are some people that just want to say bad things no matter what. Those people you can't save. Alright, so again, I have to scroll again, unfortunately. I mean, it's a good thing that there's so many people, but every time I move or pause it, I lose my place. So forgive me if I pass something. If I pass something, please just ask again. And again, write it in capital letters, because if you don't, it's going to be hard to catch it. Let's see. Favorite Spider-Man cover? Chris Barrett. Ooh, that's a good one. I would have to say my favorite Spider-Man cover... Oh, there's so many. I think one of my favorites when I was a kid was Spider-Man 30... Amazing Spider-Man number 33. And that's the one where he's just basically trapped under this metal. Like, you know, if you saw in the first Amazing Spider-Man movie, when the Vulture dropped all that stuff on him and he was all scared, and then he found the strength to get out of it. That's what that's based on from that cover. It's kind of an Easter egg. But I always liked that one. It's funny that I think that one's one of my favorites. Yeah. And it's not even worth that much. The second favorite would be Amazing Spider-Man 23. And I think that to me is more sentimental-wise, because that was one of the first earliest Amazing Spider-Mans I owned as a kid. And that's the third appearance of the Green Goblin. Just love the colors, especially with Spider-Man's blue and red costume and a pretty much a white background. I found that the one thing I liked the most was the top left-hand corner when you saw the full, not the full image of Spider-Man, because that happened a little bit later, but the first 20 or 30 issues, they just showed Spider-Man's head. I always liked that image for some reason. I just found it fascinating. A lot of the artwork was kind of cheesy, but every now and then there was some pretty great artwork. So I would say all-time Spider-Man favorite cover would have to be issue number 33, followed by 23. So it doesn't always, for me, mean the most valuable comic. It was just those were nostalgic for me, and I love those covers. Sometimes less is more. Okay, let's see. All right, I see a lot of people talking back and forth. That's always a good thing. Let's see. Comic Lover Omega, very easy question, says, how is your day going? Going very well. My birthday was very nice. I actually had to DJ a Sweet 16 for my birthday, but I spent time with my wife afterwards. And speaking of which, this is a different red shirt. This is not the same shirt she got me that I showed the other day. But day's going well. Doggy Lover says 81 people watching. So thank you for that. Again, it's showing offline, so I have no idea. It doesn't show how many people are watching. So I appreciate those with the update. Let's see. And Chaos Lord has the same thing. He says his favorite Amazing Spider-Man cover is 33 as well. So there you go. We have something in common. I think that's just great. It's just a great cover. That's one of the books that got stolen from me. I mean, I was easily a 9.0, but I haven't gotten another one since because it's a little overpriced for the fact that it's just a nice cover. And I'll get one eventually, but I want to wait for a good deal. But I absolutely love that cover. James Ewing says, Chris, how do you keep your books organized? I pretty much mentioned that already, but like I said, that's why I'm getting a lot of them graded now, especially my key issues. It's a lot easier to find them. Let's see. Sequential Geek says, who would you want to play Stan Lee and Jack Kirby in a movie? I don't know if Jack Nicholson is still doing a lot of acting, but I think Jack Nicholson might be a good one to play. Or maybe, because you'd have to think, I mean, are you talking about when they're younger? Or like when most people kind of remember Stan Lee as an older man, for example? That's a good question. I guess when it comes to a lot of the newer actors, I don't know as many, but it would have to be somebody that's quick on their wits. It'd be interesting to see what they would do with that one. I guess maybe the guy who played, I forget the actor's name, that played J. Jonah Jameson in the original Spider-Man movie. I think he would make a good Stan Lee. As far as Jack Kirby, I mean, I guess they could use pretty much almost anybody to fill his shoes, because most people wouldn't recognize Jack Kirby as much as they would Stan Lee. So I think it would be more important which character would play Stan Lee. And they could probably get almost any older actor to play Jack Kirby. Not to say he's not important or anything, but if you ask the average person on the street, Stan Lee, they'd know exactly who it is. You say Jack Kirby, most of them have no idea what you're talking about. So I think it would be easier to pick a person to play Jack Kirby than it would Stan Lee. So, but that's an interesting question. Thank you for that. Let's see. Adrian Homebuckle says, just got home, had to get our cat from the vet. I'm sorry to hear that. We just had ours. The good thing is that she just has an infection. We have to give her some medication. And I hope that your cat will be better. Oh, she says she's not expected to make it through the night, but we don't want to give up on her. We're thinking it's antifreeze poisoning. Ugh. Try and look up if there's anything that you can do against that. And that just means you must have some horrible neighbors. Because if anybody does... I can't understand how somebody could do something like that to an animal. And Adrian, I hope she recovers. Give me some good news. And anybody out there that they can, if you're a person that prays, pray for their cat. Because I think that's just... See, that's what I'm talking about. That's a despicable thing. If you want to be negative towards somebody or hate somebody, how about somebody that would be willing to poison an animal? That's a person that deserves the negativity, not somebody that collects in a different way. So, Adrian, I'm sorry to hear that. Hopefully you'll have some good news. It's nice to hear you don't want to give up. Go online. Get off of here. You can always watch this another time. But go online and see if there's anything that you could feed her that could kind of counteract the antifreeze. So, please bring some good luck. So, if anybody could pray for that cat, I would really appreciate it. So, good luck with that. Okay, just scrolled all over the place. Michael Peterson did do a super chat of $2. Thank you very much. You didn't ask a question, though, so if you ask a question, make sure you let me know. I always appreciate when people do that. So I gotta scroll. I keep losing the spot. Alright, let me try and find it. Okay. Let's see. Adrian says, how much have I missed? Well, I guess it depends if I'm giving any information that you feel might help. Let's see. Yeah, and again, if you can, ask it in capitals so I could see it better. Alright, so people are saying there's about 76 to 78 people watching. That's always great. Need some thumbs up. I always appreciate when people do. Okay, so Jose Serrano says, do you think Overstreet comic book price guide is worth referencing? Again, keep in mind it's a guide. It's not a guarantee. If the Overstreet price guide says a book is worth $1,000, it depends. Are people willing to spend $1,000, or are people willing to spend more than $1,000? Many people overpay for their books. So remember that when somebody, any online or offline, whatever, any price guide thing that you see is just a guide. Just because they say it's worth $1,000 doesn't mean that's exactly what you have to pay for it or what somebody's willing to pay for it. So use it as, again, for referencing. So it gives a point of reference, a general idea. But I always base it not on what other people say a book is valued at, but what people are willing to pay for it. Because you could literally have a book that's worth $20. Then the next day there's a movie announcement or a TV announcement, and all of a sudden that book shoots up to $300, $400. So the price guide's not going to help you there. So, again, guides are just that. They're guidelines. Base it on what you think it's worth as well. You know, if a book's $1,000 and you only have $300, well, you're not going to get that book. So does it really matter? Or if you're never going to sell them, then it doesn't really matter the price. So, again, you just got to do your own research. Kentucky 64 says, I bought a Black Panther #1 in 2016 for $5, but people told me it was more expensive. What do you think of it? I think for $5, you got a great deal. Obviously, Black Panther #1 is not his first appearance, and you're talking the 2016 version. So, I thought at first when you said Black Panther, I thought you meant the one from the Bronze Age. So the Black Panther, the 2006 version, is not going to be worth much. But, I mean, you spent $5 on it. You didn't spend $100. You didn't spend $50. I don't think it's going to have anything of significance, especially these newer books. Because here's the thing, especially with Marvel, and DC does it as well, they reboot all the time. Now, they'll tell you they're doing it because they want people to keep up and they want the stories fresh, and they'll give you all the, the political BS. Plain and simple, the reason they do it is a #1 is going to sell more copies than a issue 47. So I don't like the fact that they reboot all the time. So a book like the Black Panther #1 2016 is probably going to be worth maybe $8, maybe $10 if you're lucky. But if you spent $5, hey, if you buy something for $5 and sell it for $10, you've doubled your money. But don't expect a book like that to be worth hundreds of dollars unless something major happened. And usually in a #1 issue, they don't usually waste a death or a first appearance most of the time in a #1 issue because they know it's going to sell regardless of what's in it. Let's see. Rand for Tim Mungan says, your opinion on Red Hood. I find that character interesting. Just keep in mind, the original Red Hood was the Joker. So the Red Hood goes back to all the way the days of the Golden Age. Because when they gave at least one of many of Joker's origins, you know, he started out as the Red Hood. So I guess it really depends on what version. I like the character, especially the fact that nowadays, they're actually, I think, as far as I believe, he was in a TV show recently. I don't watch the DC TV shows. I don't find them interesting. Doesn't mean they're bad. I just don't find them interesting. But I think that the Red Hood was in them. Let's see what they build with the character and everything. But again, if you buy like his first appearance for very cheap, it's definitely worth getting into. I don't think he's going to be the next Superman, but I mean, some of these characters, you know, if you enjoy them, that should be what it's most for. Hilea Comics Bro says, how much do you spend on storage? We have like a medium-sized storage facility that we put a lot of our stuff in. Especially a lot of my comics are in storage. We pay about between $65 and $70 a month. So it's fairly reasonable, but for the amount of space that we have. But I think it's also, I mean, we could literally keep them here if we wanted to, but safety-wise, it's a lot better to have them in storage. So a lot of my more valuable ones, I keep in storage, but I do keep a couple here, you know, in case I have to do a video or something like that. And Jason, I do want to mention this because Jason Hole says eBay 8% eBay bucks right now. The reason I didn't do a video on that is it's by invite only, and I didn't get the invite, so I can't show whatever guidelines or requirements are there. So check your eBay page. You may have been invited for that. I'm a little disappointed in that, considering I have 3 books coming soon, and those of you know that one of my businesses, I'm a massage therapist, and every now and then, because I have my own business, I make very good package deals that sometimes people just can't pass up. And a person bought about a $3,000 package. So I paid off a bunch of bills. I have other things that I had to do with about $1,000 of that money. I always make sure I pay the priorities first. And with the other $2,000, I bought 3 books, 3 key books that are on their way. I don't get that very often, and when I do, I like to kind of treat myself. But again, make sure the bills are paid first. That's priority. So I'm actually a little disappointed that, considering how much money I spend on eBay, I don't get those deals very often. So check your eBay account. You may have that 8% eBay bucks there, but it is by invite only. And I only do the videos when I have it, because then I can actually read what the requirements are and show it to people. So thank you for bringing that up. Bake the Snake says, hey guys, how's it going? It's going well. Let's see. 74 Screw Gun says, you mean it's not flat? Well, technically, I don't know. I've never walked the whole entire thing, so who knows? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Either way, somebody's wrong. You know, for a long time, for hundreds of years, people said the earth was flat. Now people saying the earth is round. Could be either one for all I know. I haven't left the planet to find out. So as ridiculous as it may sound, remember, back in the days when everybody thought the world was flat, if you went against that, you'd be executed. So at least now they just give you a thumbs down on a video. So I guess if I'm going to be in any time in the universe and on this planet, you know, at least back then, if I was wrong, people would murder you for it. Now I just get a thumbs down. So I guess I really can't complain. Let's see. Agu Ramos says, love the vids, good sir. Thank you. He says, plastic, black with locking lids, short boxes, or conventional cardboard short. Oh, okay. So you're saying what type of basically backing boards? I guess it really depends on your space. It depends on where you're storing them and how much money you have. You could go with a little bit of everything, trial and error, see what's best. And sometimes it depends on the books. I mean, honestly, do you want to buy a plastic, very expensive long box for books that are, you know, dollar bin books? So maybe get the more expensive ones for your more expensive comics. Base it on that. That's why, like, I've seen some people with Mylars. I mean, again, if you want to buy Mylars, that's up to you. I would rather spend money on books than something that's going to protect the book for thousands of years, even though I'm only going to live If I'm lucky, 100. But I mean, I've seen people putting Mylars in their dollar boxes. You know, their dollar comics. I mean, to me, that's a waste of money. But, you know, to each their own. If you got that kind of money, hey. But, you know, as far as what's the best thing, it really depends. You know, are you storing them in your attic? Are you moving a lot? Do you have limited space? You know, if you have limited space, then the plastic ones are going to be better because then you can pile them on top of each other without them crushing. But also remember, the better the protection, the more they're going to cost. So do you have that kind of money? Sometimes maybe a little bit of everything. Don't limit yourself. Base it on what you think is best for your situation. Let's see. James Ewing says, Chris, you posted the other Submariner comic. How do you remind service for those kind of books on auction sites? Not really sure what you mean. How do you remind service for those kinds of books on auction sites? You're going to have to re-ask that question because I'm not really sure what you mean by that. So forgive me if I'm just not getting it. Michael Peterson says my question got skipped. Again, I'm not trying to skip anybody on purpose. Every time I move this at all, things shift. So rewrite your question. And again, make sure it's in capital letters. Because if I miss something, it's not on purpose. Every time if I let go of this, it will scroll. And it will scroll all over the place. So you may have not written it in capital letters. But please do, because I'm not purposely trying to avoid anyone. So I apologize if I missed it. Just write it again. Let's see. This is for, Bake the Snake says, this one's for anybody. What are eBay bucks and how to get them? All right, eBay bucks are basically, you got to sign up for them. You do have to be either, I believe, in Canada and the United States and maybe some of their territories. It will not work if you live in, for example, Europe or Australia or anything like that. So if you live in those countries, it just won't work. But if you do live in, for example, America, you sign up for eBay bucks, and every time you buy an item, depending on the item, you'll get a percentage. Like now it's 1% back in eBay bucks. And every now and then they do specials where you'll get more eBay bucks. And then basically every quarter, you could redeem the amount that you total to buy anything on eBay. Like certain things don't apply. Like if you buy gold coins, for example, it usually doesn't apply. I think gift cards don't apply. So there are exceptions, so make sure you read them. But it's something that costs nothing and highly recommend to get. Another thing I highly recommend, that it's in the description of this link, is the cashback program, which again, I think it can only be used again in those same areas. If you live in Europe and things, it will not qualify, unfortunately. But what that is every time you activate it, once you've signed up, you can get a percentage back on all the things that you buy on all their different websites. And they have lots of them. It's eBay, Amazon, Macy's, JCPenney's, Walmart. There's a whole bunch of things. So it's not just limited to comics. And you can get anywhere from 1%, I've seen, up to 11% cash back. And if you sign up and use it within the first 90 days and spend $25 or more, you get an additional $10 cash back. So sign up for that as well. But yeah, either one of those, they're free to have, and it's basically extra money in your pocket. So to me, they're kind of no-brainers. All right, so let's see. All right, do you have any Nerdy Vision says, do you have any Jack Kirby signatures in your collection? I don't believe I do. That's one of the signatures I think I've never been able to get. His signature tends to be very expensive on books, so I would love to have one, but I don't think I have any at all. Now I'm going to have to want one, so thank you for that, Nerdy Vision. You gave me another book to look for. All right, so let's see. Again, please try and write them in capital letters so I can see them better. Yep, and there you go. As soon as I click, it scrolls all the way down. All right, so that's when unfortunately, I lose my place, and then I have to try and figure out where I might have left off. All right, so let's see. And I thank everybody for being here. I really appreciate that. Nerdy Vision says I would pick Christopher Walken to play Jack Kirby. There you go. That'd be a good one. I'm not sure if he's still acting, though, but that would be an excellent choice. Stephen Phil says, how do you have such an awesome accent? Well, I live in New York, so if you view that as an awesome accent, I appreciate that. But basically, my accent comes from living here all my life. And somebody, actually, one of my subscribers actually thought I was from Canada. I was like, I have a New York voice. Everybody knows what a New York voice sounds like, but he thought that meant Canadian, but that's all right. I didn't take that as an insult. It was just the first time anyone ever accused me, anybody ever asked me if I'm Canadian. Let's see. All right, Marvel Joe 67 says, "Hey Chris, any key books you recommend for tomorrow's new comic book day?" As far as key books, not that I'm aware of. I don't really research new books anymore. I only go if there's books that I have on my regular pull list to get books. I don't really research the newer books anymore because I don't like the prices that they're heading towards. I don't like the fact that they reboot all the time. I mean, I will get new books from time to time, but I really don't research because a lot of these characters end up being a one-and-done character. Like, they'll get hyped up really quick. It'll create a frenzy. It'll create a book that's $50, $60, $80, and then it really doesn't go anywhere. So I would hate to tell somebody, oh, this is the flavor of the month, and then it ends up dropping out of nowhere months later. So, I mean, there's, like, channels like, for example, Jim's Comics. He does the books of what he recommends that you get. So I would listen to a channel like that and get a better information than what I would do. It's just not my cup of tea anymore. All right, so let's see. Let's see. James Hardy says, "Love 361 First Carnage." Yeah, that's a great cover. I love that book. I bought several copies of that the day it came out. Let's see. All right, so I see a lot of people talking amongst themselves. I always love that. And Ranford Tim Mungan says, "Jason Todd." Yes, so he's referring to the Red Hood. Yep, always loved him. That's what got me started into collecting back in the 80s when they were talking about when you could vote for the death of Jason Todd. I missed that book by 1 month. That was the Batman number 427. And when I heard about it and went to the comic book stores, issue 428 just came out. And 427 was already like $30, $40. And at the time, I didn't have the money to spend. But I did get issue 428, which is the part 4 of the 4-part series. And did not get that book until 2015. And that was the book that I always wanted and what got me into collecting comics regularly. So that is very significant to me. So I always had a thing when it comes to Jason Todd. Yeah, so that brings back memories. All right, so Mark Demio, and again, if I pronounce these wrong, please forgive me, says, "What do you think of buying an early appearance of a character just because it's hot, because of a movie or TV rumor, for instance? I'm not a big fan of Submariner, so I'm not that interested in getting it." Well, it really depends on the person. My thing is, don't waste your money on things you don't like. Because if the character ends up being a flop, if the TV show or movie doesn't get made, or if the book does not rise in value or rises really quick and then drops and you didn't sell it, you're going to be very mad that you're now stuck with this book. So my thing is, buy it because you like it. See, me, when I buy something, I'm buying it because I'm enjoying it at that moment. So even if it loses money, I don't care because I didn't buy it. Yes, I buy a lot of key issues, and yes, a lot of them are worth money. But it won't change my love for that comic if all of a sudden that value goes down. Well, I'll give you a prime example. I bought, when I came back in 2014, I think I bought an 8.5 graded first Ultron graded CGC. I spent the $525 for that book. It's not worth that much anymore. Am I mad? No. Am I disappointed it's worth less than what I paid for it? Sure. But it's not the end of the world to me. So if you're buying a character that you don't like at all and you're going to be mad if you don't make money on it, then you're buying it for the wrong reasons. So it really depends on the situation of why you're buying it. So is it a good deal? That's for you to decide. Never let anybody else tell you what you do is good or bad. You can get people's information and get advice, but never base it on what everybody else is saying. Because even if 99% of the people, like for example, you mentioned Submariner, even if 99% of the comic book community says, oh, it's a no-brainer, you absolutely have to get Submariner, and you're a fool if you don't get it. If one person doesn't like Submariner and doesn't want to get it, that doesn't make that person a fool. Just because they're doing the opposite of what everybody else says. They just may not want to spend their money on that character. Nothing wrong with that. But a lot of people give in to peer pressure. So, let's see. And Adrian says about the cat, says, giving her activated charcoal, that's good, that can help. A small amount of Pepto for her stomach. My wife and I have done all we can. Just care, keeping her warm and hydrated at this point. Give her a lot of love. Stay with her. All right, just focus on her. Like I said, as much as I appreciate you here, your animal's more important. So my advice, watch this later. As much as I like that you're here, spend some time. Make sure you pay attention to her needs, and you never know. You might end up with a very blessed day tomorrow. So keep doing what you can, but definitely love is a big factor. So try and be there for her, and she'll have a reason to hang around. So watch this later. As much as, like I said, I appreciate you here, but that's more important. You can watch my videos anytime. Let's see. Okay. A lot of people talking back and forth. I like that. And, of course, it scrolled. Just when I think I got it on, they scroll on me, and then all of a sudden 50 different things move up. Okay, so you guys are talking back and forth. I always like when people do that. Okay, that I've already read. Comic Head 84 says, question, do you own any CBCS red labels? Think they're worth doing for resale value? I do have a few. Back before I even knew who PGX was, I sent in some books that I got signed back in the days. My Amazing Spider-Man number 300 that I bought for cover price, I got signed by Todd McFarlane. I had a New Mutants 87. And there was also one that I did not get signed, but I bought signed, which was Ultimate Fallout number 4, the 1 in 25 variant. That was signed, and I went under CBCS. I think they graded rather strictly. But as far as resale value, again, it depends on what you paid for it. Like, for example, my Amazing Spider-Man 300 came back only a 9.0. It was signed by Todd McFarlane, but I bought it for cover price. So if somebody only bought it for $100, I made a $99 profit. Well, you have to minus the fees of the eBay and the shipping and everything. But, I mean, it really depends on what you pay for something. So is it worth it? It can be. But if you have a $1,000 book that's worth $100, then no, it's definitely not worth it. So it depends on what you get. And remember, PGX also does signature verifications, and I've used them as well with books I've had signed, and they are spot on with them, but they're a lot cheaper. So it depends on what you're doing it for. Hilea Comic Bro says, buy what you like. If you do that, you can't go wrong, and that is something in the comic book community that everybody will say, and it so holds true. If you buy what you like, you're going to be happy regardless. All right, so let's see. Chris Barrett says, if you could write for any character, who would you pick? I'd probably do like the Punisher, because I think that's just a great character. And there's just so many different ways to go, because, you know, when you're talking like Superman, I mean, he's an alien, he could fly, he has unlimited powers. But with somebody like the Punisher, he's a regular human being. He doesn't have superpowers. So he has to use his wits, or he could literally die. And, you know, despite what they did to him in the 90s, you know, once you're dead, you're not supposed to be able to come back. And I think it'd be more of a humanizing level that would be created for that. So I think if any character, as much as I love Spider-Man, I just think like the Punisher would be something that would be more interesting to write, because it would be more of what we could relate to. Because I don't, as much as people can relate to Spider-Man, not many people can relate to the fact of getting bitten by a radioactive spider that gave you spider powers. But with the Punisher, you know, he was a military trained. He had people murder his wife and his family, and he vowed to seek revenge. And that's just something that a lot of us would do, you know. So I think that would be more of a humanizing story to go with, and I think that would be something I would find interesting. Jose Serrano says, Batman or Superman? Hard to say, because I like both for different reasons. And it also depends on which Superman, for example. I like the old Superman, where he was happy, where he was, you know, truth and justice in the American way. and not this newest version that snaps heads of his enemy. I don't like the darker version of what they tried to do with Superman. I think the dark works excellent for Batman. It fits into his character. But Superman, to me, should be Mr. Goody Two-Shoes. The one that does what's right. That's why, to me, one of my favorite movies of all time is the original Superman 1 and 2 from the 70s with Christopher Reeve. I like the way he portrayed Superman. To me, that's what Superman is, not the Superman that they have today. He shouldn't be dark and gritty. You know, he should be... I like the morality of the character. And for some reason, they want to take morality away from everybody. That's why you see people not... You know, we're all humans, but not many people really care about humanity anymore. They're too busy seeing, you know, what kind of insults can we throw online to hurt somebody, or whose house can we go to and scare their family. You know, that's humans not being human. So I like the fact that Superman was, even though was not human, seemed to have more humanity than anybody on Earth. So it really depends on the era. But I like each one for different reasons. Halea Comic Bro says, who's your favorite character? I think I said that before, but I'll say it just in case. Amazing Spider-Man, I absolutely love. Wolverine, I absolutely love. The Punisher, I think those are the three. And then Batman and Superman would probably be next. Lobo is another character I used to love. One of the DC characters, especially the Simon Bisley or Bisley versions of his character back in the late 80s. I loved his artwork. It was so different and strange, but it fit that character amazing. You want to read some good stories, like I said earlier, look into the Simon Bisley versions in the late 80s, early 90s of the Lobo character. That was such a great one. It fit it to a T. It just so fit that character. I hope they do a Lobo movie, and if they do, you know, do it justice for what he really is. That's a movie that needs to be rated R. Let's see. Nerdy Vision says, question. Says, other than The Walking Dead, what other full runs do you have? I don't have full runs of... well, let's see. I have full runs of Chew. I think I also have the full run of Outcast. Of older stuff, I mean, I don't have full runs of anything. I mean, like, for example, the Great Legend Show, he has almost, I don't know if it's a complete run, but he has a major run of Fantastic Four, all the way down to issue number 1. Totally jealous of his collection. But I was never really into the runs, getting the runs, which I guess, if you think about it with anything in life, excuse me, you wouldn't want to be interested in getting the runs. It's a whole other story. But yeah, I never really got into that, because especially nowadays, it's hard to get a full run, or because of the fact they reboot it all the time. I mean, it's easier to get the full runs, but it's hard to want to continue to keep doing that time and time again. So I think Walking Dead's really the only major one that I have. I would love to have something like Amazing Spider-Man, but I mean, that's so expensive. If you didn't have it years ago, it's going to be very difficult if you don't have a lot of money. So that's pretty much what I have as far as full runs. I think also the... what other one? Oh, can't think off the top of my head. It's the one with Harley Quinn, Poison Ivy, and there's another third character, and they were supposed to make a movie about it. I forget the name of it, but I believe I have the whole set of that as well. And I was going to have the whole set of the whole run of Rick and Morty, but after I learned all that stuff about Rick and Morty, I don't buy their comics anymore. Alright, so that looks like that should be all the questions. If I forgot something, please forgive me. Like I said, it's scrolled all the time. I see there are some messages that are retracted. That means they deleted their own comment. So I'm going to leave it at there. I'm going to do the surprise subscriber shout. I'm just seeing if there's anything that I might catch really quick. Again, I don't know how many people are watching right now, because it still shows as offline. But I'm going to do today's surprise subscriber shout out will be Jose Serrano. So thank you very much. But thank you to everybody. I mean, when I do these, especially I decided to do this last minute, the fact that I got so many people telling me of an average of 70 or 80 people watching, that means a lot to me. It's nice to know that people actually appreciate my opinion. And just to show you this little wonderful thing right here, this is why I don't eat candy. You know, for Halloween, we had some candy that was left over because we didn't get a lot of trick-or-treaters. And yes, even at 48, you could develop a pimple. So that's always wonderful. So it's one good reason why I don't eat chocolate anymore. But that's it for now. I want to say thank you to everybody. Hopefully you answered. Captain Crunch said, what's up with Rick and Morty? Well, there was a whole event that the creator of Rick and Morty, his past, and some things that he was found doing when it comes to children that I didn't appreciate. And I just decided for me, he was no longer somebody I wanted to invest my money in. So I have issue number 1 through, like, I think issue 35 or something, and I was getting the full run. But once I found out about that stuff, I decided I no longer wanted to contribute any more money to his cause. So you might want to look into things like that. But anyway, thank you very much. I hope that you appreciated this video. If you give it, yes, Gotham Girls, that's the book. Thank you, Agu Ramos. I appreciate that. And I hope you guys enjoyed this. And we'll do it again if you guys want it. So think of some questions, write them down, and we'll see you next time. But I will be doing a video tomorrow morning for the must-have comics. I do have some comics that are coming in the in my pull list. So I will be doing a video tomorrow. That's usually about 20 to 1 in the afternoon. The video will go up somewhere around that area. So check that out. And maybe you'll see something that's good. So thanks for watching, guys. And don't forget, it's not you. It's not I. It's We Love Comics. Thanks for everybody that even took a second to watch. Keep your prayers out for my subscriber's cat. Hopefully she will turn out to be okay. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a great night, everybody. Peace out.